The marching bands we know today can trace their history to the beginnings of civilization, and they've almost always been a part of the military. I'm Jim Bohannon, and I'll be showing you a little of the history of the marching band. Come with me and I'll show you what I mean. Military leaders have always recognized the importance of music. Originally, instruments like the drum, the horn, the trumpet were used to rally the beaten and discouraged, to lift the spirits of the weary, to provide inspiration and dignity in ceremonies, and even serve as a psychological weapon to frighten an enemy and take away his will to fight. By the time of King Solomon, there were reputed to be 200,000 trumpets in use. The ancient Greeks had 6 types of trumpets or horns and used one called the salpinx during the siege of Troy. Music was used to command troops in battle. Scholars attribute the success of the Roman legions to the drum used to beat the marching cadence and battlefield commands. Trumpets sounded the charge or retreat. Cornets were used to regulate the motions of the colors. And the classicum announced the presence of the commander or the execution of a soldier. By 750 BC, the Romans developed 3 types of military trumpets and horns. Caesar used the cornu to draw the soldiers' attention to their standard, and wherever it was carried, the unit would follow in formation. During the Crusades, European armies learned how to use military music from the Turks and Arabs, who used kettle drums, cymbals, bells, and reed pipes. When Frederick the Great reorganized the Prussian army, it included some of these Turkish elements, along with oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and horns. At the Battle of Waterloo, the British noticed that French drummers accompanied their charging troops while beating the pas de charge.
The number of drums found on the field was particularly great. The French drummers continued to roll during the charge and are consequently much exposed.
In the 18th century, the use of military music was introduced to the American colonies during the Revolutionary War. Today, the colonial Williamsburg Fife and Drum Corps march the same streets of Williamsburg, Virginia, that their counterparts did during the Revolutionary War. The sounds of the music rose above the noise of battle, so commanders could signal their soldiers. And at rest in the evenings, the music provided encouragement and entertainment to men weary from a long march. The Civil War dramatically increased the role of military bands in America.
I don't believe we can have an army without music.
I don't know what we should have done without our band.
Seldom were they directly involved in fighting, but a shift in the tide of battle could suddenly put the men and their instruments at risk. One band has even been credited with stopping a retreat with only the force of their music. In the years following the Civil War, the Army went west to protect settlers and took their bands with them. During this time, the term musician referred to field music used to provide battle signals and regulate camp life, while the bandsmen played for parades, rallies, funerals, balls, and ceremonial events.
The bugle was the hourly monitor of the Cavalry Corps. It told us when to eat, to sleep, to march, and to go to church. A frontier soldier needed timepieces only when absent from garrison or camp.
As you can expect, cavalry bands needed special training. It was no mean feat to play a brass instrument while riding a horse in formation. Gary Owen, a popular cavalry march, was the special favorite of General George Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry. Written in the 1770s, it was introduced to the American military during the French and Indian War. Another popular cavalry song was "The Girl I Left Behind Me."
When our band struck up "The Girl I Left Behind Me," the most desperate hour seemed to have come. All the sad-faced wives of the officers who had forced themselves to their doors to try and wave a courageous farewell and smile bravely to keep the ones they loved from knowing the anguish of their breaking hearts, they gave up the struggle at the sound of the music.
After hearing the band at a post in Dakota Territory, the poet Walt Whitman wrote Italian Music in Dakota, dedicating it to the 17th, the finest regimental band I ever heard. The black regiments in the U.S. Cavalry were especially noted for the quality of their music. The drum major of the 25th Black Infantry in the 1880s was believed to be the first person to twirl the baton and use gymnastics.
He wore a huge bearskin hat that towers above his tall head. The messenger who announced the fall of Jericho wouldn't have been half so impressive as the august black potentate when he turns his baton as the signal for the band to wheel past the commanding officer.
By 1889, there were almost 10,000 bands in America, and by 1908, there were 18,000. Every town had its own band, regularly performing in the town square, just like the mythical River City from Meredith Willson's popular Music Man. No town or village can pretend to have attained much progress in social aesthetics which is not blessed with a good brass band, wrote the Chicago Daily Inter-Ocean in 1881. The Wurlitzer Instrument Company wrote that there is nothing that rouses the universal enthusiasm of everybody as does a spirited band. The late 19th century was dominated by two musical masters. One was Patrick Gilmore, sometimes called the father of the American band. The other was John Philip Sousa.
Somebody may bring the string orchestra to such a degree of perfection as to make it a very queen among its kind, but my military band shall be king.
In 1869, Gilmore brought together 10,000 singers and 1,000 musicians in Boston, resulting in days of glorious music making. In 1880, at the age of only 24, John Philip Sousa was named the conductor of the United States Marine Band. Also known as the President's Own, it was established by Act of Congress on July 11, 1798. Sousa directed the band from 1880 to 1892. It was during this period that he first began to write the marches that would earn him the title of the March King, in spite of the fact that the Sousa Band was primarily a concert band and is said to have marched only 7 times in its long history. By the 1920s, changes in American culture also changed the role of the band. The rise of radio, phonographs, moving pictures, and automobiles represented a revolution in recreation. Yet just as the popularity of concert bands declined, instrumental music programs in the public schools became increasingly common, especially when they were related to a popular new sport called football. Marching bands today represent the culmination of a long history in precision marching, pageantry, and great music, all designed to entertain, just as the professional bands did at the turn of the century, and military bands did before them. We can see their importance in our culture and language by such colorful expressions as "get on the bandwagon" or "strike up the band." Marches remain a major national treasure, as unmistakably American as the waltz is Austrian. There are 4 basic types of bands today. The first is the concert band, and it's still associated with the armed services like the bands of the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. The second type is the corps style, and it is primarily seen at halftime of high school and college football games. Third is the freestyle marching band, often performed by the bands of the historically black schools, such as Jackson State University. The final type of band is the parody style, demonstrated by Rice University. with a style of its own is the precision military marching band found here at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. Celebrating its 100th anniversary in 1994, the Fightin Texas Aggie Band is the nation's largest military marching band. With 36 bass horns, the band also has the largest bass section in the world.
The Aggie Band combined the two things that I enjoyed the most in high school, which was high school JR, OTC, and band.
When I was a sophomore in high school, my high school band came to a competition that the Aggie Band held here. And after all the high school bands got performing, the Aggie Band put on a demonstration. And when I first saw the bugle ring do their flourish thing, I knew from right there I wanted to be in it. Just seeing it for the first time, there's nothing like it.
It's like a huge family, you know. There's such a huge following of former bandsmen, of current bandsmen, and then future bandsmen as well.
The friends that I've gotten over the past 3 years, the experiences that we've shared, friends that I've made, these are the guys that are going to attend my wedding. They're going to attend the birth of my children. But most importantly, if I ever pass away, these are the guys that will carry my casket to my grave.
Let's take a closer look at this band, which combines military history and tradition with entertainment. From 1876 to 1963, Texas A&M was an all-male military school. Then things began to change. Now it is the country's third largest university with more than 43,000 students, nearly half of them women. This museum holds some of the history of the university, including the beginnings of the Aggie Band in 1894. The first Aggie Band had only 13 members and was led by Joseph Hollick, an immigrant cobbler from Czechoslovakia. Hollick, who lived on campus and repaired the cadets' shoes and boots, attracted an audience of cadets and faculty one evening when he was playing his clarinet. Soon, he was asked to sound bugle calls and eventually to form a college band. Arthur Jenkins followed Hollick as bandmaster in 1895, and a number of others followed closely thereafter. These early bandmasters presided over a much smaller band than today's group of more than 300 men and women, but they established a foundation of excellence that continues today. Almost with the advent of college football, the game has been associated with the marching band. Today, it's virtually impossible to separate the two. This is the E.V. Adams Band Rehearsal Hall, where the band is preparing for a performance. One interesting thing is that all band members are still part of the Texas A&M Corps of Cadets, even though many do not pursue a military career after graduation. They wear uniforms every day, they are housed together as a military unit, and even march together to the cadet dining hall for meals. Let's ask band director Colonel Ray Toller what it takes to make this band ready for a performance.
The Aggie Band's reputation is truly national in scope. It's highly regarded by my peers in the music industry. It is unique because we are the only major university band that marches in a military precision manner. And the thing that always keeps coming back is that every time we go to a new place that we haven't been before, the response that we get from from both the fans, their fans, as well as the band directors, etc. They marvel at the way we do things and the discipline of the band and how truly unique it is and how good it is, because the style that we march in with the Aggie Band today is the style that all bands marched in until about all university bands up until the late 70s and early 80s. And about that time, college bands started drifting toward this drum corps style.
I knew I wanted to be in the band because I was in band in high school and whatnot, and I knew I wanted to be in the band. And when I went out and watched them drill, I could not believe it. I was in shock. It was so different than anything I'd ever seen. I came from a show band at my high school. I didn't come from a military marching band. And it was so different than anything I'd ever seen in my life, and I wanted so badly to be part of it.
Well, each Monday, right here in the band rehearsal hall, the first practices for Saturday's game will take place. This is where each precision drill is planned out step by step. Actually, I'm not quite as good as they are. I could use some more practice. Once the drill has been designed and approved, the band has only 3 practices to make it perfect. And then, the evening before the game, a final practice takes place on Kyle Field. This is Kyle Field on the campus of Texas A&M. It's empty now, but in a few hours, it'll be filled with more than 70,000 fans. Fans who will be pulled into the excitement of the game by the music, the rhythm, and the beat of the band.
The coolest thing about the marching band is just the intricacy of the movements that they have. I mean, it's just amazing to see that people can get along without running into each other.
Their form and structure, and then the way they're always together, and just their overall music, they're awesome.
I like how regimented and precise it is also, and also their kind of music they play, it normally riles up the spirit a lot better than like show bands of other schools do. And also like having them in block and moving in blocks, this also has a bigger impact than say like show marches that just go in weird designs.
That pride, that sharpness, that military appearance, that's what I like best about it.
I love watching them at the football games, you know, then their formation things. I don't know, I get really excited.
And now, the band is ready to perform at the game. The band is ready. The fans are ready. They're on.
Well, I like the way the tuba players, when they go around the corners, they do like this. And we all go, whoo, whoo, like that.
Great, absolutely great. As Rudolph Wurlitzer once said, no matter how much we may differ in other ways, we are all alike when the band begins to play. Sitting in the stands, we watch the local school band march by on the field, playing the Stars and Stripes Forever. They represent our history, and we watch and listen with tears in our eyes, because in that moment, we know that we are a part of that history. And through the music, we find ourselves linked to the proud and glorious past, while looking forward to a hopeful tomorrow. I'm Jim Bohannon. Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about the history of bands, we recommend The Music Men by Margaret and Robert Hazen, and The Drums Would Roll by Thomas Railsack and John Langelier. For a centennial history of the Aggie Band, A new book is out called The Fightin' Texas Aggie Band, now available from the Texas A&M University Press.